Welcome to Hope for the Caregiver on American Family Radio. This is the nation's #1 show for family caregivers. We have the largest broadcast for the family caregiver in the country. And why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we as believers be out in front of this issue that's affecting so many people? Think about how many people you know who are caring for an aging loved one or a child with special needs. Somebody who's had some type of traumatic event. Maybe that's where you are today. Maybe you've got an alcoholic in your family or some type of addict, or you know someone that does. Think about all these people. And why shouldn't believers be out in front of this? And we are. And we're glad you're with us. Thanks to American Family Radio for believing in this message and what we're trying to accomplish here by strengthening family caregivers. We want you to know as a family caregiver that you can live a calmer, healthier, and dare I say it, a more joyful life. If you want to learn more, by the way, it's hopeforthecaregiver.com, hopeforthecaregiver.com. And this is our special Christmas show. We wanted to finish up on a series we started last week. And right here, just before Christmas, we want to give you a few more things that you can give to yourself as a caregiver. This Christmas, you don't have to do something extravagant, but these are important things for you as a caregiver. And last week we talked about the first 4, which were committing to seeing a physician for yourself. I know as caregivers, we all see physicians all the time, but we want to see them for ourselves. And that's very important for us physically and every other area, because if we're not in good shape, how is this going to help our loved one? Now, I've been a caregiver now for over 33 years. My wife has had massive amounts of trauma that she's had to deal with as a result of a car wreck she had back in '83. Well over 100 physicians have treated her. But now, do I see my doctor regularly? And that's something I had to learn to do. And I had to go and check and make sure that my blood pressure is okay, my sugar levels are okay, my cholesterol is okay, that my weight is okay. And you know what? There have been many times during this process where it hasn't been. And the stress on us as caregivers is real. So that's number 1. Commit to seeing your physician. 70% of caregivers don't. And there are a lot of numbers out there being thrown about how many caregivers are in the country. Some say it's 42 million. Some say it's 65 million. All I know is there are so many people doing this. And if 70% of them don't see their own doctor, how can that be a good thing? Is that where you are? And you may say, okay, Peter, I can't go. I can't leave my loved one to go to the doctor. Okay? So everybody that's not a caregiver right now, this is for you. For those caregivers, just stand aside for just a second. For the non-caregivers, maybe your Sunday school class, maybe your church, maybe your large extended family can pitch in and say, you know what? We want to sit with that loved one while the caregiver goes to the doctor. And maybe they need skilled care. You know, there are services that provide that sort of thing. And maybe you just pass the hat in your Sunday school class or in your civic group or something and say, you know what, we want to do something here. It's not going to cost you more than a couple $100 tops to have skilled care come in for 4 hours or even 8 hours. And these are things you can do for a caregiver that have lasting impact to make sure that they're getting the proper medical care they need. All right? These are all easy things to do. You just got to see the need and you got to meet the need. All right, that's number 1, though, so is committing to seeing your doctor as a caregiver. Second thing is, and this is just a review, then we'll get into the new ones for the rest of the show. Second thing is, commit to doing something that brings joy to your heart. What do you do? What do you enjoy doing? What does something for you? What stirs your heart? And I don't mean you have to go out and do something exotic, okay? Maybe it's just a really good movie. Maybe it's something that you want to do over Christmas that you've always found and you got fond memories of doing as a child. You know, we have a family movie we like to watch. It's the Christmas Carol, which everybody's watched that. But the one we like is the one with Albert Finney. And it was a musical, and it was so well done. And I enjoy that. I'm a pianist. I like to sit there and play the piano and just kind of work out the kinks of my soul. Talked to a caregiver last week, called in, and she's a painter. She just lost her son. She'd been taking care of him for 40 years. And he was a quadriplegic, and then he ended up dying of cancer. And she hasn't found the time to paint very much over the years. But now she's going to try to re-engage that part of her. How about you? What do you like? Knitting, working jigsaw puzzles, Sudoku, whatever, a crossword puzzle. It doesn't matter. Whatever just really engages you on a heart level that you just find enjoyment doing. Can you do that one thing for yourself during the Christmas time? Okay? Don't slight yourself on that. And maybe it's a special dish that you like to have at Christmas dinner. My sister's coming to be with us for Christmas dinner. We're way out in Montana. She's coming all the way from South Carolina, where we were all raised. And normally for Christmas dinner, of course, people will have turkey and some people have goose and everything else. Out in Montana, though, we made it a tradition to do, steaks for Christmas. But my sister, she wants to cook shrimp and grits. Well, now for those of you in the South, that's ambrosia. we get it. We love shrimp and grits. Not so much out here as much. People don't. They kind of raise their eyebrow, but you know what? That's meaningful. And my sister's a caregiver as well. And these are wonderful things to do that just bring joy, to sit around the table and do something. You don't have to have a curry or knives Christmas. You can have a shrimp and grits Christmas. So that's what we're going to do. So find something that you can do. All right, and the third thing is where it gets a little bit dicey. Would you make a list? Write down, just jot it down on a piece of paper, all the people that you hold resentment towards and grudges towards. Could be a doctor or nurses, or multiple doctors. Could be an employer or coworkers, family and friends who you feel like probably should have helped more, your pastor, whoever, yourself, your loved one. Make a list of all those individuals. Read it slowly. Read it slowly. And then forgive them. Let it go. And then burn the list. Now, let me explain something about forgiveness. We water forgiveness down sometimes and we'll say things like, well, it's okay. No, it's not okay. The infractions are real. The offenses are real. But the ability you have to exact justice on those offenses is limited. You just cannot go around and punish people for the things that you think they've done to you, or maybe they have done to you. You can't. Now, you don't have to fellowship with them. You don't have to hang around them. You can keep boundaries, but you don't have to keep the grudges. You can learn to just live comfortably in your own space with it. Give them a lot of space themselves. But you don't have to hold on to that resentment. How is that a good thing for you? What is that doing for you? As caregivers, one of the goals that we have is to stand at a grave one day. I know that sounds kind of grim here at Christmas time, but that's the reality. We don't want our loved ones living without us. We can't guarantee that we will, but we can live our lives as if we will, with proper health care and taking care of ourselves and all those kinds of things. But we don't want to be standing at that grave with resentment, with our fist clenched with resentment, mad at ourselves or anybody else. You can't push a wheelchair with clenched fist. As a pianist, I can tell you can't play a piano with clenched fist, or at least not very well. So how about it? Can we let go of some of those things? Write that list down of all the ones you resent. Forgive them. Take your hands off of their throat. Let God deal with them. And you live your life peacefully. We got one more to go, then we'll get to our new ones. This is Hope for the Caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberger. HopeForTheCaregiver.com. We'll be right back.
The end of all my prayers is to care like my Lord cares. My one and only goal, His image in my
You'll have to forgive me, but I just love listening to my wife sing. I really do. That's my wife, Gracie, singing Keith Green's I Want to Be More Like Jesus. I want to be like Jesus. How about that? If you want to hear Gracie's CD, by the way, hopeforthecaregiver.com, hopeforthecaregiver.com. Her new CD is out, and you could go out there today and take a look and listen to some of those things. Wonderful record, and she's the real deal. And you can't believe that what she can do as a singer, and you think about her story, what she's been through, how many times she's been intubated. And we were worried sometimes that she wouldn't be able to sing again. I mean, they've had to go down with tubes down her throat to resuscitate her and all kinds of stuff, and she can really do it. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver, hopeforthecaregiver.com, and if you click on the picture of her record, you'll take you to the presenting sponsor of the show, Standing with Hope. And for any tax-deductible gift to Standing with Hope, end of the year donation, we'll send you a copy of her CD. hopeforthecaregiver.com, and the CD is called Resilient, and she is. All right, we're talking about 8 great Christmas presents for caregivers to give to themselves. 8 great Christmas presents for caregivers to give to themselves. First one is seeing a doctor. Second one is committing to do something that brings joy to your heart. The third one is make a list of the people you resent and forgive them, and then burn the list. Lose the grudges, keep the boundaries. And let me go back to this thing about forgiveness. A lot of people really mistake that. They kind of make it sentimental, like, okay, well, it's okay. It's okay. No. It hurts, and it's real, and it matters. But I don't have the power to go around and adequately adjudicate all this. Okay? I'm not God. I can't bring justice to these things. And I'm going to have to release certain things to God and to the authorities he sets here in this earth. And I'm going to take my hands off of someone else's throat, because that's what we're doing when we forgive. It's a decision of our will. We're going to let it go. Okay? As a pianist, I cannot make beautiful music until I open my hands. I cannot do this with clenched fist. I can't push my wife's wheelchair with clenched fist. Okay? And as a caregiver, neither can you. Let it go. Doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It just means that you're not in charge of it. And let God deal with it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go back and be buddy-buddy with these people. You can keep the boundaries, and I recommend you do. But lose the grudges. Okay? And then the fourth thing is, this is what we all covered last week, make one small change in your diet. For instance, substitute water for a sugary drink. Grab a piece of fruit instead of a candy bar. A salad for a burger. Olive oil for butter. Little things like that. You don't have to make these massive changes, because I don't think it works that way for us. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. But we can make one small change today. Just something simple. And then affirm yourself when you do it, okay? Go ahead and give yourself an attaboy on that or attagirl on that and say, you know what? I did a good thing. I did that this morning. I grabbed some water, put a little lemon in it. I'm not changing the world with it. I'm just doing a simple thing. But you do these simple things enough, and all of a sudden they turn into major things. So those are the 4 we covered last week. Now, it's important for you as a caregiver to recognize yourself year round. And here at Christmas times, we really get lost. One of the things you'll hear me say on this show a lot is that we lose our identity as caregivers. We just simply get lost in someone else's story. And at Christmas time, we're trying so hard to make it special for someone else. We think this is mom's last time, or, we're trying to recreate the joy of Christmas past, and we become slaves to nostalgia. We don't have to do that. We can enjoy Christmas as it is today, even in the hospital room. Okay? Even at the funeral home. You can. It's not easy, and it will have pain, and you will have sorrow, and you will have tears. But they don't have to be tears of rage and tears of despair. Okay? Weeping endureth for the night. Scripture says, joy comes in the morning. We're going to weep. All creation is groaning on these things. We're going to weep. But my goal for myself and for you as a caregiver is that we don't weep out of a sense of hopelessness. As Paul says, we don't grieve as those who have no hope. You see, God is going to work through all of these things and bring glory to himself in ways that we can't even imagine. And he's going to make all things new. Not all new things, all things new. And we wait for that. And we trust him with it. Now, how do we know we can trust him? And that's where the cross comes in. That's how we know. And the longer we walk with him, the more we see how broken this world is and how big God is, the more we understand how important the cross is. The greater we see the brokenness of all that's going on around us, the more it seems like the bigger the fracture is between God and a good and loving God and this broken world. But then the cross just keeps growing and growing and growing to span that, so that we hang on to Christ as we walk through these terrible things. The valley of the shadow of death can be a very long valley at times. A very long valley. And those of you walking with someone with chronic impairments, you really get that. And it is a hard thing to watch someone suffer. It's a hard thing to watch someone decline. And so in those moments, that's when we realize and we can trust that his scarred hand is holding on to our scared hand. Okay? Hang tough on that. All right, let's get to the next. We'll go through the next 4 throughout the rest of the show. This is one of my favorites. Send a Christmas card to yourself. Pick out a card your loved one would get for you if they were healthy. In a healthy physical place that they could actually get to the store and do it, or a healthy emotional place or mental place. Maybe they're not there anymore. Maybe they don't even hardly know your name anymore. Or maybe their disease has made them so bitter, or maybe addiction has taken over them and they're just lost. But if they were healthy, what would they say to you? Pick out that card. Send it to yourself. Address it. Mail it to yourself. And put a $10 bill in it for you. Why not? That's not pitiful. That's affirming. And that's honoring. For those of you in a marriage relationship where your partner is incapacitated. Maybe your husband has Alzheimer's and he doesn't know who you are anymore or what's going on. Maybe your wife has dementia. You can honor that love by picking out a card that they would have gotten for you had they been healthy. Okay? And read it slowly. There's some wonderful things out there. Preferably get one that's a Christian card because it'll incorporate parts of Scripture in it. And, the word never returns void. And if you're mailing the word to yourself, what is that going to do for you when you open that up? Plus, if you got a $10 bill in it, you can treat yourself to something. Okay? I know that may sound kind of whatever. Try it. Try it. Why not? All right, so that's number 5. Number 6, do something physical. Do something physical. Walk to the back of the house and back. Okay? If you can't get out of the house very easily, then just walk around the house. Walk around the yard. Walk down the street. Do something physical. Get up. Move. I read a story about Alan Alda, who has Parkinson's, and he plays John Philip Sousa music all really loud in the house, and he marches around to it, and it inspires him to pick his knees up so that he will keep that blood going and improve his balance and dexterity. That's the whole point of Parkinson's is you've got to, the way you fight back at it is to keep your balance. Parkinson's won't kill you in that sense. But what it does is it compromises your ability to be balanced, and you'll fall. And the complications from the fall is what causes so many problems. And so I had a friend of mine, I do martial arts, and we tested for our black belt together. He was a good bit older than me, but he hung through it, and he did it, and he had Parkinson's at 70 years old. And he did it, and he would fall. But one of the things we teach in the art I train in is how to fall without injuring yourself. And he got out there and he pushed himself, and he would flip me and I would flip him. And it was really inspiring to see. And that's how I took care of myself with it and do things for me is martial arts. I embraced it and loved it. And I've got to find a dojo out where I am here because I'm a long ways from it. I can't go out and throw an elk or a deer out here. That's a little bit harder to do. I mean, we live in Southwest Montana now. We moved from Nashville, Tennessee. So we're a long ways from anything. Our county doesn't even have a traffic light in it. So I've got to find a place where I can resume my training because I really miss it. I fell on the snow just a couple of days ago, and I was in a hurry, and I was wearing shoes outside that I should not have been wearing. And my legs just flew out from underneath me, and I fell, and I landed on the meat of my left shoulder, which we're trained to do in martial arts. You don't put your hand down to stop it because that's a good way to break your hand. And it hurt, but I wasn't injured. I was feeling my years on it, and my pride was hurt a little bit. But but I caught myself properly and was able to, take the worst of it the right way. But that's how I learned how to just kind of push back against things. I mean, we can get kind of chunky as caregivers. I see it's one of the landmines in my book, 7 Caregiver Landmines, is excessive weight gain. And I see so many caregivers struggling with this. I struggle with this. I mean, I got big. I mean, I got so big my picture fell off the wall. I mean, I got big. I broke my family tree. And that's heartbreaking for us as caregivers when our own weight becomes a real issue. But they call it comfort food for a reason, And so if we can do something physical to push back on that, it's going to help us all the way around. So get up and walk. Pick up, yourself off the couch or off the chair. I know you're tired. But if you can just lift those knees a little bit higher, hopeforthecaregiver.com. We'll be right back.
No matter the bumps, no matter the bruises, no matter the scar, still the truth is the cross has made you flawless.
Welcome back to Hope for the Caregiver on American Family Radio. We are the nation's #1 show for the family caregiver. We're glad you're with us. hopeforthecaregiver.com. And I hope you're listening either on your radio or on your AFR app. If you haven't downloaded that yet, this is a good time to do it. AFR app. It's free and it's easy to use. And there's so many great programs on this network for you. The entire network is designed to keep putting good stuff into you. I don't think you realize, maybe some of you do, regular listeners, but those of you who are not regular listeners to AFR, I don't think you realize how much maybe these people are doing to help protect you and build you up. They are pushing back and they are waging against the cultural rot in this country and around the world, while simultaneously working hard to feed believers and reach non-believers with the gospel. And so if you haven't gotten the app on your tablet or your phone, device, whatever, go get it. It's free. And you can stream these shows. There's so many things out there, so many resources. And I'm glad that AFR and the American Family Association has taken this show to heart. And they see value in this. Family is the middle name of the American Family Association. It's designed for the family. And this show was for the family caregiver. And there are so many of us out there who are struggling, who are just pulling our hair out, who are hanging our heads with weariness, who are just at our wits' end while dealing with someone who has a chronic impairment. Maybe it's a traumatic brain injury. Those are not necessarily terminal things, but it affects the personality of the individual. And it's so hard on the family to watch this and to watch what happens with Alzheimer's when a loved one starts having sundowners and the face and the voice that you've loved for a lifetime all of a sudden is cursing at you. How do you deal with this? And particularly this time of year. This is a hard time of year for caregivers. we get lost in the hustle and bustle of the season, and we're trying to make it special for someone else. Do we have any room for Christmas in our own hearts? And I say yes, and that's what this is all about. I am Peter Rosenberger, and I am glad that you're with us. HopeForTheCaregiver.com. In the next segment, I'm going to play a special song from Gracie, just a Christmas song that we're going to end with. I think you'll love. It's available at our website and all over the place, and would love for you to go out and get it and stream it out on Amazon or whatever you want. It's available out there. And my wife is a no-kidding singer, and her new CD is out. It's called Resilient. And you can go to hopeforthecaregiver.com. Just click on the picture of the CD. And for a donation to Standing with Hope, which is the presenting sponsor of this show, any donation, any tax-deductible gift that you want to do end of the year, I don't care what the amount is, we'll send you that CD just as our gift to you to thank you for supporting the work of Standing with Hope. We have 2 program areas. It's for the wounded and those who care for them. And for the wounded is the prosthetic limb part that we did. When Gracie lost her own legs, she wanted to provide a great way of sharing the gospel to her fellow amputees. So we work with the government of Ghana, and we teach and equip their people how to make prosthetic limbs for their own people. And we provide them with all kinds of equipment on this and supplies. I just purchased a bunch of resin to make the sockets, and then we recycle prostheses. We get used prosthetic limbs from all over the country. Go to a prison in Tennessee where inmates volunteer. They volunteer to do this, to disassemble them for us so that we can recycle the feet, the knees, the pylons, the screws, the adapters, the connectors, the prosthetic socks, the liners, the sleeves, the belt systems, the arms. All those things can be recycled. Not the socket. That we make custom over there. And we're getting ready to ship over some more things. So if you want to share that information with amputees and funeral homes and other places that you know of that may not know that there's a service out there that will do that, they can send those devices in, stick it in a box. We'll take care of it. And what a great thing to hang your stockings by the chimney with care and put a leg in it. Oh, I'm just kidding. Actually, no, I'm really not. Done that. So standingwithhope.com, and for any donation to Standing with Hope, we'll send you Gracie's CD. How about that? All right, we're talking about our 8 great Christmas presents for caregivers to give to themselves. Oh, by the way, here's something to do. Before I get to the last 2, we've gone through 1 through 6. Commit to seeing a doctor. Commit to doing something that brings joy to your heart. Make a list of all the people you resent and forgive them, and then burn that list. Lose the grudges, but keep the boundaries. Make a small change in your diet. Water for sugar drinks, or fruit instead of a candy bar, salad instead of a burger, olive oil instead of butter. Send a Christmas card to yourself. Pick out a card your loved one would send if they were physically and mentally able to do so. Okay? And then stick a $10 bill in it for you. Do something physical. Walk back to the house and back if you can't get out. A lot of people say, well, I can't leave the house. I can't leave. Well, then walk around the house. Go to the next room. Physically lift your legs up. As I mentioned last segment, Alan Alda plays John Philip Sousa music, the 76 trombones in the big parade, all the big marching band music. And he marches around the house and gets his knees up. Well, he has Parkinson's, and he's doing this to keep pushing against losing his balance and all those kinds of things. Physically moving around. Well, that's good advice for us as caregivers. Let's do that. Pick yourself up and move. Get those knees up. Move around. Get that heart rate up. Okay, it's going to help you. And then we got 2 more to go. But before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of a survival guide for yourself. It's just in time before Christmas. You can still do this. My book, Hope for the Caregiver, it's available as an audiobook at an Amazon Audible. You can go out and download the book and listen to it in less than 3 hours. I read the entire book and a few bonus features in there. And I promise you will enjoy it, and it will just kind of equip you to get through it. There's still time for you to do that before Christmas hits and New Year's and everything else. And January can be pretty bleak too, because your deductible starts all over, and there's just a lot of drama let down from Christmas. Tank yourself up by doing that. And it costs less than a combo meal at a fast food place, the audiobook. Okay. And you can get the paperback version of it as well, the Kindle version of it. And then also, you can get Songs for the Caregiver, my CD, which I would recommend having. It's a bunch of hymns, and it's interspersed with Gracie singing a few songs. And I think you'll find it incredibly calming and soothing to you and inspiring for you. I specifically did this for caregivers. And some people listen to it and they sleep, and that's wonderful because I want you to be able to rest. Some people listen to it and they weep, and that's okay too because that can be healing as well. So these are things you can stream or get digitally right now at hopeforthecaregiver.com. Please do yourself a favor. All right, the last two. Isolation. Isolation is crippling. It is crippling. It's one of the 7 caregiver landmines I talk about in my book. And we can be isolated physically, which most caregivers are, but we can also be isolated emotionally. It's very difficult for us to talk with people. It's very, very difficult for us to engage. And I tell a lot of pastors this, that caregivers can feel isolated in a crowded room, and we can feel isolated on a crowded pew. We really can. And it's hard to do this. I remember one of the most lonely times for me was on Easter Sunday. And I was in a church filled with 2,000 people. And everybody was singing, wearing their Easter best, and there was a huge orchestra there, and it was spectacular to see. My kids were with grandparents, and Gracie was hovering. She was so sick. And we lived 2 miles from the church, and I was able to slip out for Easter service. And I sat there, and I felt so lonely. But I went. And everybody else is all upbeat because it's Easter Sunday, and I was in agony. But I went. And I heard the gospel. And I'm asking you to go someplace. Just slip in. Go someplace. Listen to the music of the season. There are services going on all around with Christmas music and so forth. Slip in and listen. Go to a place of worship. Go to a church that's close to you. And engage and just be around other people. If you get a chance, go to a support group. If there's one near you for your particular issue that you're dealing with. If you're dealing with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or whatever, there's usually support groups for family members for that at all kinds of places. It doesn't have to be perfect for you. It can even be a 12-step recovery group, like Al-Anon. All of these things are designed to help people who wrestle with things they can't control. And it may not fit your particular issue, but your issue is not necessarily the problem. It's how you're responding to the issue is where the challenge is. If you have to look at it this way, if Alzheimer's was taken away, would you be then happy all the time? I don't think so. I think we'd find something else to be challenged about. And Scripture says that we can be content and joyful in the midst of whatever. Now, we have to ask ourselves at some point, do we believe that or not? Is this true or not? And so, by pushing back and saying, you know what, maybe I have the problem. Maybe I need to engage. Maybe I need to be around other people who are talking about this same issue. I have a theory, and you've heard, those of you regular listeners to the show know this. So just hang on for a second. But I have this theory that we as caregivers really don't need a lot of advice. Okay? We really don't. But we do need a lot of reminders. Does that resonate with you? I mean, is that kind of where your headspace is right now? Is that, you don't need somebody to come in here and say, you should do this, you should do this. I don't want to hear anybody tell me what I should be doing. But I don't mind hearing what people tell me that is healthy to do. Because that's helpful. That's reminding me of where the path to safety is. This is Hope for the Caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is the nation's #1 show for you as a family caregiver, and I'm so glad you're with us. We're on American Family Radio. Merry Christmas. We'll be right back with our last one and a special song from Gracie.
trying to be perfect. All the fears, all the lies I believed in. All I've been chasing, putting my faith in. Let it fade, let it fall into pieces. And just give me Jesus.
Welcome back to Hope for the Caregiver on American Family Radio. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is the nation's #1 show for you as a family caregiver. And I tell you, why shouldn't we be? Why shouldn't believers be out there in front of this issue? We can speak hope to those who are struggling in ways that no one else can because of the hope of the gospel. And on this show, we speak fluent caregiver. So for those of you who are not a caregiver, you may be able to peripherally take a look at this and say, hey, oh, okay, that makes sense. But for those of you who are caregivers, you know exactly what we're talking about. And you know the strain, and you know the heartache, and you know the pain, and you know the sorrow. And you're why we do the show. And I'm glad you're here. HopeForTheCaregiver.com. It's not too late to go out and get an audio copy of my book and listen to it before Christmas, just for yourself. It costs less than a combo meal. And I made it very, very affordable. The paperback of the book is also available, the digital version, the Kindle version, and all that kind of stuff. And then you can also, the CD, you can download and stream the CD, Songs for the Caregiver. Songs for the Caregiver, and it's available too, just to listen to calm you down during these times. Just stream it in your car while you're driving around. And if you got Bluetooth in your car, you can hook it up from your device to your car speakers and just enjoy it. And it makes the trips to the doctors and the hospitals and the grocery store and everything else a little more pleasant in the traffic. I tested it myself on Atlanta traffic during rush hour on 285, and at no point did I experience road rage. So that says something right there, because it is guaranteed to reduce road rage in Atlanta traffic. So take that for what it's worth. All right, we've been going over all the things that as caregivers we can give to ourselves this Christmas, just to be able to do something for us, to affirm us. And I'll go through them real quick, and then we got a special song from Gracie. Commit to seeing a doctor. Commit to doing something that brings joy to your heart. Make a list of the people you resent and forgive them, and then burn the list. Keep the boundaries, but lose the grudges. Make a small change in your diet. Grab some water instead of a soda. Grab some fruit instead of a candy bar. Send a Christmas card to yourself that your loved one would pick out for you if they could. Okay? Physically and emotionally, or emotionally. Do something physical. Walk around, get the blood going in your body, lift those knees up, put some perk in your steps, and push yourself physically to do something. You don't have to go to a gym and join some kind of, that kind of thing. You don't have to do something, because you may not be able to very easily, but you can move around your house. You can pick your arms up. You can pick your legs up. You can move. And then go to church. Go to a place of worship. Slip in somewhere and just listen to the music of the season. Don't let yourself get isolated. And then the last one is call a trusted friend and tell them you're struggling. Make sure it's a trusted friend. Take a leap of faith that they will listen. Don't ask for solutions, just an ear and a tender heart. You don't need to fix this, because these things aren't going to get fixed. My wife's legs aren't growing back. Her body is broken, and it's going to be broken until Christ restores that in his time. So I don't need anybody else to come along and try to fix this or have you do that. I don't need all that. I just need an ear sometimes. And I bet you do too. Reach out and give someone a call, a trusted friend. If you don't have anyone, you know what? You can call this show. All right? That's what I do this for. And if that's the place you got to start, that's the place you got to start. But don't let yourself get isolated, alone, and you need to be able to have that companionship of people. All right? So those are just things that you can do for Christmas for yourself for this year. They're important things to do. And year-round, we can do some of these things too. But give yourself a gift. Recognize that what you're doing is extraordinary. And I'll put this out on our podcast. Our podcast is free, and everything's out at hopeforthecaregiver.com. And if you're listening to this show for the first time, you just happen to get in the car and you're listening to it, this is a show for caregivers. And you may not be a caregiver, but you're a regular listener to this station and you have a heart towards ministry. This is how you help a caregiver. You point them to safety. That's what it looks like. And that's why I do the show. Through my books, my CDs and music we have, everything else is designed for caregivers. I understand the stress in ways that few do. And I've had ample time to make every kind of mistake you can make as a caregiver. Okay? I have forgotten more mistakes than most of you guys are going to make. And I used to be called the crash test dummy of caregivers, but a friend of mine said, you ought to change that to the Wile E. Coyote of caregivers. And so every so often I'm looking for an Acme anvil to fall on my head. And I tell Gracie she paints a picture of a tunnel on a wall and see if I'll just run through it. Now, some of y'all not going to know what I'm talking about, but that's funny. I don't care who you are. That's just funny. Listen, Christmas is hard enough. You know, with all the craziness and the traffic and the bustle around and everything else and the scheduling. But when you're taking care of someone who is impaired, it can be brutal. So I designed this show and all the things that I offer to help make this a little easier. And I want to end with something for you that's very special to me. A while back, Gracie and I got in the studio and we recorded this song. And it's Silent Night. But I love to hear her sing. It brings such joy to my heart, and I love her voice. And I've listened to this voice for a lifetime. And sometimes the two of us, when things were so bad, we couldn't hardly function, but music was able to, speak when we didn't have any words. And I wanted just to end with something that I thought would be comforting to you all and help soothe those places in your heart where you feel a bit lonely and struggling at Christmas. And I know that you do. And there's not sometimes a lot of presents under the tree. And this is just a gift from Gracie and me to you. And it'll be out on the podcast as well. So if you enjoy it, you can go out and just listen to it over and over and over. Just go out to the podcast. It's free. And you can just listen to it over and over in the wee moments of the night or whatever. Play it on Christmas Eve if you want, whatever works for you. But I just wanted you to have something to help stir the place in your heart from two people who have faced a lot of bleak Christmases together. Gracie was hurt right before Thanksgiving back in '83. And she was in the hospital for a long time. And then she's had 80 surgeries that I can count since that terrible day and a bunch of other procedures. Both legs gone. And 12 different hospitals. 100 doctors. And we spent a lot of holidays, every major holiday, in hospitals. Christmas doesn't mean you have to have the perfect tree, the perfect environment. Christmas means that our Savior was born. He's going to make all this okay. And he's going to get glory from this in ways that you and I just cannot expect. And we can trust him. Don't put that pressure on yourself to make it a perfect Christmas. He already did. Okay? He already did. And that's the point of it. And there may be tears for you during this Christmas. I get that. Been there. Still there sometimes. But they're not tears of despair. As long as you have your trust in Christ. They're tears of hope and joy, knowing that he who began a good work in you is faithful to complete it. This is Hope for the Caregiver. I'm Peter Rosenberger. Merry Christmas from Gracie and me.
Child Jesus, Lord, Jesus, Lord, Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Jesus, Lord.